Who doesn't just love fresh fruit and vegetables from the garden? Our expert, Clyde Fenton, known as a philosophical farmer, will shed some light about what to expect with fall gardening.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of the Philosophical Farmer. Today we're going to talk about fall gardens. We're in the first week of August and it's time to be thinking about a fall garden if you want to do one. Now it's funny, I've lived here in Arkansas for 18 years now and realized that there's a lot of things that actually do better in a fall garden than they do in a spring garden, and we're going to talk about some of those things today. First of all, let's talk about what can you grow in a fall garden. Here on this side of the table, I've got some potatoes that were actually pretty recently harvested, but because of moisture, whatever, they've actually sprouted on me. And so I'm going to put them in for some fall potatoes. Where we think about potatoes being grown in the fall, they really do very well being grown in the spring rather, they really do very well in the fall. And the nice thing about fall-grown potatoes is potatoes grown in the fall will store better because you're not trying to keep them through the heat. Some of the other crops that do really well in a fall garden would be your cole crops. Now I'm not going to demonstrate all of them today, but when I talk about cole crops, I'm talking about cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale. All of those do really, really well in a fall garden, and many of those crops will actually continue to grow right into the winter. I have a cousin in New York State that sent me Brussels sprouts at Thanksgiving one year, and up there they've already had a month of frost, but they were beautiful and very tasty. So, you know, there's a lot of those things you can grow into the fall. You know, another thing you can grow in the fall is herbs. One that I didn't realize this until I grew it in the fall for the first time, it's cilantro. You know, we think about cilantro being an herb that's from Mexico, and so you think, oh, it must love the heat. Well, the first year I grew it in the winter, I grew it in a high tunnel like this structure behind me, and I had the most beautiful cilantro all winter long. It took the frost, it was lush, it didn't bolt, it had lots of leaves, lots of flavor. So cilantro is one that'll do really well. We're gonna try some basil. You know, basil is gonna freeze out when it turns hot, or turns cold rather. But I think we've got enough time to grow some really nice basil to start with. I'm gonna demonstrate how I plant these in trays to transplant them in several weeks. All right, we're going to demonstrate how to plant some of these. I actually forgot to mention one just a few minutes ago when we were talking, but Swiss chard is also an excellent one. We actually have a Swiss chard that's a full 2 years old. So Swiss chard will grow right through the winter if you can give it a little protection. And it makes a good green to eat, very healthy, very colorful. It's a beautiful plant. Anyway, the depth on the Swiss chard is about a 1/2 inch. I'm going to use a pen as a dibble, and I'm just going to poke a hole right in the center of these. All right, we've got plenty of holes there. I just drop one in each hole. Our holes are about a 1/2 inch deep. These are real easy because they're a nice big seed. So you're able to see the seed easily. Now, I'm at 15 and we're just growing for ourselves, so I'm going to put 20 in and stop at that. I'll probably have some plants to give away because I don't need 20 Swiss chard. They make a lot of Swiss chard. I used my pen as a dibble, made a 1/2 inch hole. I just take my thumb and my finger. I just take that potting soil and just push it nicely over the seed so it's covered. No need to pack it hard or anything. You actually want it relatively loose. And now the key is going to be to leave this thing moist where it can get plenty of light. In a week or so, we'll have some Swiss chard up. In 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be ready to transplant into some beds in the high tunnel here. Now these are tiny, tiny, tiny compared to the Swiss chard that we just did. So it's possible we may get more than one in a hole. I just pinch some between my thumb and my forefinger and try and drop just 1 or 2 in the hole. Tell you what, the seed's pretty inexpensive. If you have too many come up, it's not a big deal to pick a few of them out Anyway, there's 15 basil for us. When it's mature, the seed of cilantro is coriander seed. So it's a pretty good sized seed if you remember from your spice rack what it looks like. Anyway, we're going to get some of that planted. Now we got 15 holes left, so we'll do 15 holes of that as well. This one calls for a 1/4 inch as well, so we're just putting a little divot there in the top. By the time we cover, they'll be just about a 1/4 inch deep. Now, it's always a good idea to pre-make your tags. As I said, that's a pretty good size seed. Little round seed, looks like a miniature pumpkin, only brown. We're going to drop one of those in each hole. "15 cilantro will make you a lot of cilantro. You know, if you happen to have some late tomatoes or something, your cilantro would come on at a time when you could make some salsa. I know my peppers always hang in there until frost. So I have peppers and tomatoes and cilantro, and I usually still have some onions that I've harvested, so you've got the makings for some homemade salsa. All right, same thing again. You just kind of gently pull the dirt over that divot that you created, and that seed is right in the center. Should be easy to tell when it comes up because it should be right approximately about the center. Well, as I said earlier, a lot of times we think about, well, gardening's done in the spring and the early summer and then it's over. But here in Arkansas, we've got a great opportunity to grow some great vegetables in the fall as well.